Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to see you all here this evening and to see you online. So both folks in the meditation hall and in the extended meditation hall in the Zoom room, welcome. Is there anyone here either on Zoom or in the hall who's here for the first time for metta practice? Okay, welcome. You too, okay. Well, this is a little different than some of the other practice periods, and I will give a little introduction, introduce the practice, do the practice with you, and then Chelsea, after we do the actual practice, Chelsea will read from the book that we keep over on that little altar, the Kuan Yin altar over there, in which people write down their good wishes, their reflections, so she'll read those for the month of June. And then I might say a few more things and we'll have time for some questions. And I just love this practice. My name is Patrice Koelsch. I have been with Common Ground almost since the beginning. I think it existed maybe about a year before I made my way over there. And it used to be, some of you know, just down about 8 blocks down. And I lived just around the corner. So way back when I could just sort of roll out of bed and roll to meditation. Now it's about 8 blocks further. But longtime member of Common Ground, longtime practitioner and teacher. So I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And many of you know that Common Ground is sited on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homeland of the Dakota people. And this land holds great historical, spiritual, and personal significance to its original inhabitants and their descendants who live here today and to their future generations. And some of you may know that we are close to what is the most sacred site in all of the Dakota cosmology, which is the Budote, which is where the Mississippi River and the Minnesota River come together a little bit south and east of St. Paul. And that was where, for the Dakota people, the original people emerged. And for many, many years, Dakota women would travel great distances to actually have their babies there at the Budote, so their children would see the light the same way it was for the first people. So we are near a really, really sacred site and are on really, really holy ground. We acknowledge the sovereignty of Native nations and our obligations to live up to treaty agreements. And it's our intention here at Common Ground to rectify the harms that we have committed and that we continue to commit. This land acknowledgement is only one very small part of supporting Indigenous communities. And it is our hope that our land acknowledgement statement will inspire others to stand with us in solidarity with Native nations and to amplify the voices of Indigenous people seeking grassroots change movements. So, some of you have heard me say, maybe you've heard me say several times, that what strikes me as most extraordinary, most unique about our species, human beings, is our tremendous capacity for care. I mean, there are a lot of other pro-social species that care for their kin, care for their offspring. And if you're on Facebook, you've seen stories of cross-species friendships. So lots of creatures, especially mammals, are very social. But as far as we know, human beings are the only species that care about, beyond kin, beyond one's own group, that we care about other beings or other people who are very different than ourselves. We care about people that we don't know. We care about people who don't even exist yet. We do a lot of, often people are very motivated for what's the world going to be like for future generations. So as human beings, we just have this remarkable capacity for care. And for me, the metta practice is one way of just more formally cultivating this capacity. And it's a capacity, according to the text, that is actually inexhaustible. We can have boundless care. Many of us grew up kind of internalizing a narrative of competition, that the world is essentially a kind of competitive place, that we're competitive as a species, that other species are competitive. And there's a very different way of looking at the world that I think is truer to our actual existence, and certainly is a lot more dharmic. And that's really a narrative of cooperation, a narrative of interdependence, exploring the possibility and seeing the possibility often of mutual thriving. So this practice is a more formal way of developing that. And loving kindness, metta, what's often translated as loving kindness. And is that our fan that is squeaking? Let's turn the fans off. I think the AC is working. So could someone, it says fans on there. So if you would just flip that top line, I think it's the second, it might be, it says fans. Chelsea, we're trying to turn the fans off because they are squeaking. Okay, it was not the top one. Sorry, I misled you. Okay. Yeah. I just got hearing aids a couple of weeks ago, so I thought maybe that's the way it always sounds. I'm just hearing it now, but glad to know that that's, so let's do without that. I think we've got the AC. So metta, what's translated as loving kindness, can be understood as a kind of friendly benevolence. It's wishing for the genuine welfare of ourselves and of other beings. So it's a way to cultivate what is skillful and liberating in this idea of a kind of friendliness, warmth, non-harming. It's a non-harming presence. And the idea is that we learn over time to abandon ill will through this practice. And ill will has nothing to do with justice. Ill will has nothing to do with having people treated appropriately for transgressions. Ill will is that desire that we sometimes have for another being to suffer for the sake of suffering. And everyone probably has seen this in Schadenfreude, that idea that when someone you don't particularly like, something unhappy happens to them, that little, well, they got theirs, and it's a very, very, it's a capacity that often is actually nurtured in our culture. But it's an indication of ill will, not wishing well for another person, wanting another being to suffer for the sake of suffering. So it's what we try to do in loving kindness practice is learn to abandon ill will. And what we recognize in loving kindness practice, as we do in our mindfulness practice and in our other other meditation practices, is we just recognize that the world is not random, that things occur because of causes and conditions, and sometimes it's a whole constellation of causes and conditions coming together. And the Buddha sometimes talks about it as a thicket. He said, if you try to understand the causes of something, it's like getting into a thicket, like the causes of weather. And there are so many variables that go into how the weather is today. So we understand in our loving kindness practice that we can be a cause and a condition for more goodness in the world. And it seems to me that this practice is especially relevant in this time. We've as a state, we've gone through a very traumatic sort of experience with some political violence, and we are. I know a lot of people are very frightened these days, are feeling very uncertain, are the sort of tenuousness of the world. And metta practice coming back again and again to our intention to live without harm, not to harm others, and our aspiration not to be harmed ourselves is a really important practice. So the metta practice we're going to do this evening, and some of you who've done it before, sometimes it's, may I have well-being, may I be peaceful, may I be happy, may I be at ease. That's kind of a more traditional metta practice. The one I'm going to offer you tonight was developed by someone at New York Insight about a month or so after 9/11, when everyone in New York was just feeling so frazzled and frightened and not knowing where to go, what to do. It was just something that was so unthinkable had happened. And so this practice that was developed there and done in a number of iterations. So the first, and the phrases are, may I or you be well, safe, and peaceful. May I or you be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May I or you find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May I or you cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, the Brahma Viharas. May I or you live in peace and harmony with all beings. And this is for many, many years, for a couple of decades, I've actually offered meditation at a correctional facility. And this is the practice that actually resonates most deeply with the residents of the correctional facility. So it's done in iterations. I will offer them, but in New York, it was first done like for the people in the towers, for the first responders, for the families and friends of the people in the towers, for the families and friends of the first responders. So it was all these sorts of concentric circles that just kept going out and out and out. And by about the 11th iteration, it was for the families and friends of the persons responsible for these attacks. And so one of the things that we try to do in this practice is to bring in more and more persons with whom it is more challenging to wish for their genuine welfare, recognizing in some ways that if we all had what we needed, if we all were supported, if we all were loved, if we all were in deep and satisfying relationships, there would be a lot less harm in this world. So it's a practice that I think is really suitable for this time in our practice lives, that we embrace this. So I will be doing a number of iterations tonight, and I'll say the phrases and you just sort of repeat them in your own mind. And So I'll go through a number of categories, and you can feel free to add your own categories to it as you are thinking about this. So we'll begin in a minute. Make yourself as comfortable as possible. The instructions for metta practice is, we take care of the body. We try to be kind to the body when we do metta practice, especially. So let yourself be seated in a comfortable way. And bring your whole self into this practice. Not just the good meditator, but all those parts of you that may not be so loved can be invited into this practice. And in this practice, because we care about our own welfare as much as we care about the welfare of others, we offer metta to ourselves, which is not always easy. It's often not a person's first inclination. So in order to maximize feelings of tenderness about ourselves, we might have a mental image or a felt sense of ourself either now or at some point in your life where you would have really appreciated having support, having a friend, knowing that someone really cared. So having some sort of sense of ourselves that enables us to offer ourselves these aspirations, these good wishes, with as much genuine tenderness as possible. May I be well, safe, and peaceful. May I be well, safe, and peaceful. May I be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May I be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May I find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May I find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May I cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May I cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May I live in peace and harmony with all beings. May I live in peace and harmony with all beings. May I be well, safe, peaceful. May I be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May I cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May I live in peace and harmony with all beings. And you can always stay with yourself, but traditionally we move on further and further from what is easiest to what might be more challenging. And in this practice, you're encouraged to stay where it feels genuine, rather than try to force yourself um, to wish well when the metta feels like it's getting weak. Just stay where you are or return to wishing well for yourself. But the hope is that we develop some momentum in this practice. So we go from what is easier to what might be more challenging. So next we can go to what is called the benefactor. It's usually teachers, someone who's been very kind to us, someone really easy to offer the same good wishes that we have for ourselves. May our benefactors be well, be safe, be peaceful. May our benefactors be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May our benefactors find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May our benefactors cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May our benefactors live in peace and harmony with all beings. And we just let that resonate for a minute. Our good wishes for those who have helped us. And now we can turn our hearts to our families and friends. Again, possible having a felt sense of who it is that we're offering our good wishes to. May our families and friends be well, be safe, be peaceful. May they be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May our families and friends find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. And may they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May our families and friends live in peace and harmony with all beings. May all in our spiritual community, our Sangha, be well, be safe, be peaceful. May all in our Sangha be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May all in our Sangha find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May all in our Sangha cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May all in our Sangha live in peace and harmony with all beings. And now we can widen the circle even further and think about people who may be more vulnerable, who could use the support of our loving good wishes. May all people who feel unsafe due to their immigration status be well, be safe, be peaceful. May all persons who feel unsafe be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May all who feel unsafe find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May all who feel unsafe cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May all who feel unsafe be able to live in peace and harmony with all beings. May all persons who are victims of the war in Gaza and Ukraine be well, be safe, be peaceful. May all victims of war be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. And may those persons find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May all victims of war cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And may they be able to live in peace and harmony with all beings. May all who are bereaved be well, be safe, be peaceful. May all who are bereaved be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May all bereaved persons find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. And may they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And may they live in peace and harmony with all beings. All people who are victims of violence be well, be safe, be peaceful. May they be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May they find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. And may they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May they live in peace and harmony with all beings. If you can go there, may all who incite and perpetrate violence be well, be safe, be peaceful. May those perpetrators be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May they find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And may they live in peace and harmony with all beings. May those who put themselves at risk to interrupt violence be well, be safe, be peaceful. May those who put themselves at risk to interrupt violence be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May they find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May they live in peace and harmony with all beings. May those who love the earth and work to protect it be well, be safe, be peaceful. May they be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May they find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. And may they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May they live in peace and harmony with all beings. And may all those who love the Dharma and practice the precepts be well, be safe, be peaceful. May all who love the Dharma be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May they find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May they cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And may they live in peace and harmony with all beings. And now we'll just practice in silence. And you can bring to your heart, mind, any other being or categories of beings. Just notice where the heart turns, to whom the heart turns toward. And using phrases or just a felt sense, hold them in your good wishes for their safety, for their freedom from suffering, or your wish for them to live in peace and harmony. And you might also want to return to yourself, offering yourself those loving, supportive, wholesome good wishes. And bringing our formal practice to a close this evening, may we all be well, safe, peaceful. May we all be free from the suffering caused by fear, by anger, by ill will. May we all find forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another. May we all cultivate loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. May we all, every one of us, live in peace and harmony with all beings. Thank you for your sincere practice. And Chelsea is going to come and read from our Book of Good Wishes.
Sending care as best as I am able to our local government leaders who are needed to make timely decisions that impact the welfare of so many, including me, across the state. Metta to myself as I walk the line between wanting clear decisions from them for my sake, while also wanting them to move slowly so they make good decisions for everyone else too. Gratitude and metta for this urban refuge that welcomes us all and always feels like home. Sending loving kindness to my Norwegian family, Barb, Jennifer, Russ, Scott, Bernal, Dawn. Hoping to visit sometime this summer. Wishing you all a safe and happy summer solstice. Wishing my family, Gloria, Jane, Darius, Barbara, Papa, and all my cousins a safe and happy summer. Metta and deep gratitude to Stacy McClendon. Your grace and lived practice are huge parts of my journey. I recently celebrate one of your something. A deep bow to you, sister. Metta and deep healing wishes to Carol Jean. Metta and deep healing to all that come here. Metta for those caught in the trap of addiction. May they find compassion for themselves to be free from the suffering of self-centered fear. Healing wishes to Carol J., who is recovering from surgery and sitting with a cancer diagnosis. May she have care and comfort. Much love to Jim. Mudita and love to my friend Ellie, who visited Prairie Farm and the City Center for the first time today. Metta and appreciation to Common Ground for being here, from a traveler from New York City. Love from Ellie. With love for Carol Gabrielson, who passed away this month. May all the goodness of her bright and generous heart have long-lasting and reaching benefit. Metta for we humans with addictions and poverty. So much pain. Love and compassion for all near and far who are affected by political violence. Gratitude for the life of Joanna Macy, beloved Buddhist scholar and environmental activist and philosopher, as she transitions from this world.
Thank you for reading those, Chelsea. That's such a touching testimony to how people are moved by coming here and by what's happening in our world. So I'd like to sort of open this up and just inquire, what happens when we open our hearts like this, in this kind of a practice, when we really allow ourselves to be vulnerable and express how much we care. And can we appreciate this practice of caring deeply without being enmeshed in having a particular outcome? I mean, I think that often is the challenge in this practice of wishing well, of wanting beings not to suffer, to be happy, understanding at the same time that everything is impermanent, everything is always changing. We're all, as human beings, we struggle with greed, with aversion, with delusion. So in this very beautiful and imperfect world, what happens when we open our hearts, when we risk being vulnerable, and which is a true risk often. And we live in a culture that encourages us in many ways to be really armored. And the Dharma doesn't do that. The Dharma asks us to be genuine, honest, open, caring. And this is a practice to encourage this. And also acknowledge that many of us are really struggling with feeling overwhelmed. So there's this kind of oscillation between being vulnerable, being open, and then just sometimes feeling flooded and overwhelmed and needing to take care of ourselves. Sometimes psychologists talk about a kind of window, and that we stay within this window of tolerance. And when we get too much, sometimes we can either shut down and go numb or just get kind of manic. So in our practice, we're always bringing that sort of wisdom, of really bringing mindfulness, of paying attention so that we don't get overwhelmed. And when we do get overwhelmed, the appropriate response is always compassion, self-compassion for ourselves. Sometimes I think people regard being overwhelmed as some sort of moral failure. And it's just being human, and not to chastise ourselves for being overwhelmed, but to respond with great self-compassion about how hard it is to be a human being and how many of us struggle between being able to be present with how things are, and sometimes it's just too much. And what we have to do is practice self-compassion then, and really take care of ourselves. So I would invite your questions and your comments, and Chelsea can go around with the mic. And we're going to use a mic because we want to make sure that people who are in the Zoom room can hear. And also, if you're in the Zoom room and you'd like to comment, either raise your virtual hand, which is pretty easy to see, or we can try to see other hands. So who would like to, as an act of generosity, talk about what's going on? How is it when we try to open ourselves in this way, or anything about tonight's practice?
Well, first off, thanks for guiding us in that. I really appreciated and needed the continued guidance all the way through. It helped me come back over and over. So thank you. And also, I appreciate you mentioning the sense of overwhelm as an opportunity to apply this. I was really struck a few weeks ago. I was solving a problem, doesn't really matter what it was, and was getting so frustrated. And then I realized, oh, I'm actually not mad at myself. I'm just overwhelmed. And I could like hear Mark Numberg in my mind saying, oh, honey, you're so overwhelmed right now. And that was it. It just sort of snapped me out of what was becoming this total inner critic, self-attack, shame cycle, and then anger at like everything else out in the world, when actually it was just a really big problem and it was really hard. And that was all. And it didn't change the difficulty of the problem, but the internal situation changed greatly.
No, thank you so much. Having that sort of recognition, and to be kind to ourselves. And sometimes, as a little trick, you can say, if someone I really cared about, my best friend in the world, if this were going on for them, what would I tell them? Because we often remember to tell our friends to be kind, to take care of themselves. And it's hard for us to remember it. It's not what we're often encouraged to do. So that idea of just saying, oh yeah, this is, I'm overwhelmed. This is a big problem. And that's all it is. It's just overwhelmed. It's not that I am this flawed, terrible, imperfect person who can't get it right, which sometimes is the default. Other comments people want to make, share. Anyone on Zoom? Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Nathan. I think it's overwhelming and scary sometimes to open my heart so much. But I think it's really beautiful too. Like I was feeling it today. My dad is having some health issues, and I don't know if it's gonna be serious or not, but just knowing that like this is the beginning of that kind of stuff because he's getting older, and I have not been good with grief in my life. Like I haven't really been present for a lot of it in my life until the past couple of years. And but opening to that possibility, even it just feels enormous. Like it's huge, and it's scary, and it's but I know that it's like to honor it is the right thing to do, and it's the only thing to do. Just like meet it with love and care, and so yeah, it's complicated,
No, thanks so much. Opening to grief and the inevitability of all of our deaths. I mean, one sort of practice sometime is just to, if you're on bus or the train or something, just to be there and just say, oh, and everyone in this, on this bus, this car, on the train, we're all going to die. And I mean, it really evokes a sense of tenderness in us to realize we're all going to die. And for a time in the 90s, I was a care partner for people who were dying of AIDS. It was just when the new meds came in, so almost everybody died, and I was a hands-on care partner. And I was with a number of people who did when they died, and so a lot of different ways of dying, and it made it really clear to me that this is how it is, and sometimes people are can let go pretty easily, and other people not so. And being with people who are frightened on their deathbed is one of the most heartbreaking things, to be with people who are really afraid at that time. And I think that one thing practice can help us do is to wisely contemplate death and to realize its inevitability, and to really take care of ourselves around this, to offer ourselves a lot of metta and the inevitability of death. And I think for those of us who have had animals, many of us have been with our pets as they've died. And I've heard people say, I would never have a pet because I couldn't bear for it to die. And I think that, I think I have learned so much from my aging pets. And that's been a real blessing in my life, and to be with them when they died. And I think someone over here had wanted to say something. But Did someone raise a hand? Anyone on Zoom? Oh, Jessica, please.
Hi, Patrice, thank you for all your practice here. I think this is a question I'm not sure is answerable in tonight, but it's a kind of a thing I've been wondering about. We're cultivating this skill, and we're able to do it in this community because we're all sort of practicing in this, in this style, in this place. But I'm wondering if there's a way to maybe unbuddhify it a little bit and bring it into a community in a way that people might not be asking for this, but it's almost like as a mutual aid service to the community. Are there ways that the kinds of things that we're doing here can be just sort of a way to talk to some, like a phrase to tell somebody, just to reflect that kind of open-heartedness and care? I mean, is there something, I'm kind of thinking literally mutual aid with loving kindness or whatever. How do we bring those things that we are cultivating here into a more broad spectrum?
That's a great question. So sometimes when I've gone and I've taught meditation, like at a corporation or a foundation or something, where it's a pretty, it's the Dharma, but it's the Dharma without language, the Dharmic language, or and I talk about loving kindness practice actually as a living in harmony practice, and encourage people to connect with their aspirations for how they might live in harmony and try to articulate it. Like the idea of being free from the suffering, of fear, of anger, and of ill will, how often our suffering is triggered by that. Or this idea about finding forgiveness for the inevitable harms we bring to one another, like being the forgiver, but also being forgiven, so that we can talk about it sometimes in those ways. And I think that when we're in contexts, like sometimes in activist contexts or with other kinds of groups, we can talk about support and care and articulate it in a way. And I also think that it's really useful to just sort of hold this as a practice, so that sometimes when something is going on, like there's an altercation, let's say there's an altercation on a bus or something, to do metta practice, to just see those people and say, may you be well, may you be peaceful. I mean, to bring yourself back. And years ago when I was driving to work, this kid, walks out in the middle of the street, and it's just kind of, I could just tell that it was just like, lady, you have to stop. And so I was sort of gritting my teeth, and I thought, may you be well, safe, and then I realized that's actually what I wanted for that person. That was actually what I wanted. And this is great. If you are driving and you're at stoplights, to as you see someone on the corner with a sign, to really look at that person and in your heart wish that person well. That's that is a really wonderful practice, to have some phrases, whether it's these phrases or some other phrases about may you be well, may you live your life with ease. That idea, may nothing bad happen to you today. I mean, that's essentially what we are wishing for people. May we all get through the day with minimal damage. And those are really worthwhile aspirations. And some compassion phrases. One that Jack Kornfield uses is, may your pain and sorrow be eased. And that's a wonderful contemplation. When you see someone who's suffering, may your pain and sorrow be eased. And really connect with that aspiration. And again, like the story about the kid, turns out that when we practice saying this over and over again, what we come to understand is that it really gets embedded in us as a deep, heartfelt wish. I mean, it sounds a little, formal, it sounds a little dry. A lot of people find metta practice as doing phrases to be, just very dry and artificial. And as kind of a connoisseur of metta practice, and I look at all the different ways people have done it, and some people, and the way the Buddha often taught was like radiating, send your good wishes this way, and this way, and this way, and this way, and above and beyond, above and below. The Venerable Analayo talks about it like a curtain being retracted in a circle, and you just are sending your good wishes that way. I came across a metta practice once that someone said what he did was he imagined like a dance party with his favorite music in the world, and he invited people that he cared about onto the floor in his dance party. And he said, and the people he didn't like so much, he said, they got to sort of stay on the edge. They were at the party, but not kind of in the middle of the party. And but he said, no, like he just thought about, oh, what do I really enjoy? And this idea of bringing having this visual image. Sometimes I know that there are some people who are very, very visual. When they visualize a person, might even visualize that person being bathed in a certain kind of light rather than saying phrases like if you're a very good visual image person, you can do it that way. And also like with children or with pets, it might be just, like oh, may you be well and happy this whole day, or for small children. So you can just adapt the phrases. And I think it's really, personally, because I'm a very more literal person, it is helpful for me to have phrases. But it might be that you are just a person who simply exudes warmth, and that's the way you practice. And you're very intentional about it. And the more intentional you are, the more habitual it will become, the more natural it will seem. So I think it is a really I would say it's probably my default practice. And you can, there are wonderful metta chants, and that's a good way to occupy the mind when it wants to go doing some things that are not too useful. There's one that we've done in here. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. I mean, very simple. And there are just, it's really kind of training the mind, the way we do in our mindfulness practice, and the way it, I think, intersects with mindfulness practice and really is supported by mindfulness practice, is we really have that ability to really pay attention to what's going on, so that it's not just something that we do kind of mindlessly, but the mindfulness practice really helps us have some clarity, and also some clarity around our own intentions. So other thoughts, responses?
My name is Kyle. Yeah, I'm struck and appreciative of the simplicity of the practice and the beauty of the practice, and the depth of the possibilities of the practice, and I'm just appreciative that it's it's the 4th of July and a group of people showed up to have, that they're looking for something for their heart, and it's beautiful that I had a place to go tonight, you know, and you know, and the little seeds that might be planted for me, you know, I can see how they might blossom in the next couple of days and weeks, and of, you know, even, oh yeah, I've been getting into chanting lately. It's just, oh, a metta chant, that would be really useful, you know. I chant when I'm riding my bike, you know, and it's just like, oh, that would be a nice. And so yeah, and the whole like July 4th thing, there's so many people like out there seeking fun and you know, a lot of alcohol and partying and you know, fireworks, all that stuff tonight. But like, it strikes me as sort of revolutionary to be here, like practicing interdependence, you know, something that actually like is connective and wholesome, and that I won't wake up with a hangover from tomorrow. So I'm thankful for everyone for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And you mentioned planting seeds. When the Buddha talks about what right effort is, there are 4 efforts, and one is to, prevent the planting of unwholesome seeds of thought, which would be like greed, hatred, delusion. And if those thoughts occur, it's to let go of them. And then the wholesome efforts are to cultivate the seeds of benevolence, of loving kindness, and if you have it, then to sustain it. So it's about cultivating and sustaining that which is most wholesome. And the image of seeds is always a good one. I mean, one of the big metaphors for life is like life is a garden. It's either the garden or the river, but those are kind of the big metaphors. And the idea about planting seeds is just so important, because seeds can live often for a very long time before they germinate. So the idea that we plant these sort of wholesome seeds and that we nurture them is really really a good thing. So some of you heard me say that. I used to say that you can choose to, okay, 2 bumper stickers are your attitudes toward life. One is no good deed goes unpunished, and the other is no act of kindness is ever wasted. And you may never have the empirical evidence for one or the other, or you can cherry pick evidence for one or the other, but you're a lot happier if you have the bumper sticker, no act of kindness is ever wasted, then no good deed goes unpunished. I mean, it may sound smart and cynical, and over the years, I've come to believe more and more that cynicism is a form of laziness, intellectual and spiritual laziness. But if that soapbox, and just really this idea about kindness, about how important it is whenever possible. The Dalai Lama says, whenever possible, be kind. It is always possible. And that's a real practice challenge. It doesn't mean that you can't be firm. It doesn't mean you can't be clear. It doesn't mean that you can't have boundaries and that you can resist things. But the way you do it, what's in your heart when you do it? Are you doing it for the benefit of all beings? Are you doing it to make the world a safer, better, kinder place? Our intentions matter so very much in our practice. So cultivating those really good intentions, those wholesome intentions, and just reminding ourselves the intention to be kind is just so valuable, so needed in this world. Other thoughts? Anyone on Zoom? Anyone else in the room? Well, I can dedicate the merit, and then Chelsea's going to make some announcements. So dedicating the merit is this wonderful Buddhist ritual, Buddhist practice. And, it is just this great act of imaginative generosity, that if there's any goodness to what we've done tonight, our intention is, if we could, we would share it. We would give it to others. We wouldn't just keep it to ourselves. And this, again, is this sort of acknowledgement of our great connectedness, our interdependence. So if there's any goodness to our practice tonight, any merit, any blessing, any benefit, we would gladly, happily, joyfully share it with others. In fact, if we could, we would give it away, every bit of it. If there's any goodness, we would share it with our teachers, our parents, our families, our friends. We would share any blessing with our spiritual community. We would share any goodness with the people we like and also the people we don't like so much. We would share our blessings with the people we know and the millions upon millions of people that we have yet to know. And in addition to all the two-leggeds, we would share any goodness, any blessings with the four-leggeds, the many-leggeds, the winged, the scaly, the slimy, and the finny. May all beings find a path to peace. May all beings be free from suffering. Thank you all for your sincere practice this evening.
Thank you, Patrice. Just a couple announcements. If you're looking for more wholesome things to do this weekend, come back tomorrow. There's a half-day retreat from 1 to 5 with Shelley Graff. And Shelley's also starting a new Buddhist Studies course on July 7th, and that goes for 6 Mondays. And that's for people who have been to at least 3 mindfulness retreats. Okay, and then this is a unique one. There is a chanting workshop with Stacy McClendon and Robin Major on Saturday, July 12th from 1 to 4. So that should be a beautiful time. And if you are new-ish to the practice, or if you know people who are interested in learning, there's an introduction to mindfulness meditation workshop with Stacy on July 19th. And then another half-day retreat at the end of the month, July 26th. And then there's also a long list of retreats, residential retreats coming up out at Prairie Farm, which is the retreat center in Wisconsin. And so check the bulletin board for that, or the calendar on the website to register for any of those things. And then last thing to note is that all of the programs that are both here and out at Prairie Farm are all offered with a spirit of generosity and offered freely. So we invite you to receive that freely, and then if there is generosity stirring in your heart to return the gift, you can donate. And especially on nights like tonight when we have guest teachers like Patrice, she will receive 2/3 of the donations that come in tonight, and then 1/3 goes to the retreat center. So you can donate. There's a card reader right out in the lobby. There's also a Venmo thing that you can scan, or you can drop cash or a check in the bowl right outside on the other side of this wall. All right, that's all. Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks so much. I will be offering a residential retreat at Prairie Farm, which is a metta retreat on August 14th through 17th. I think there's been a lottery for it already, but there might be a waiting list. So if it's something that you'd really like to do, you could see if there might be a waiting list. So anyway, thank you all.